Open wide.
Rigor mortar!
Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z already had the cards stacked against it even before it launched. Ninja Gaiden 3 sucked the life out of the franchise, and the horrendous pedigree of developer Shock Unlimited does nothing but add skepticism to a stew with an already shaky recipe. Yaiba attempts to add to the franchise through offering a side story to the series, a Gaiden of the Gaiden, if you will. But does Yaiba Ninja... fuck it, I'm just gonna tell you how Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z is the worst game I've ever played.
Shut the fuck up, both of you! I'm gonna carve your skull into a fucking hat.
This fight will end no differently than the last kamikaze.
Yaiba doesn't pick just one area to be offensively terrible in, it picks them all. Combat, the very core of this mess, is about as sticky, unresponsive, and frustrating as possible. Every attack locks Yaiba into his animation, leaving seconds, yes seconds, of vulnerability during attacks. Blocking and dodging are the worst of the lot, taking forever to activate and rarely being actually effective. Defense rarely matters anyway, since most foes can barrel even through Yaiba's strongest attacks with no repercussions. Damage isn't even scaled well too, since any sporadic barrage of attacks can easily lop off half of Yaiba's health. It doesn't even matter which enemy is attacking either. They are all that annoying enemy that has some sort of stupid status ailment that puts a huge damper on your vision, attacks, or health. It's a pathetic attempt to add variety and depth, when in reality all it does is make every fight even more tedious. Boss fights are not exempt from the grief that comes with the grunt combat, since they are terrible in many of the same ways. Almost all of them repeat often and come with the standard lack of checkpoints and aggressive difficulty spikes. The boss fights exemplify the problems with the game because they demand precision and nuance from a game that is literally anything but. You'll swing and try to defend yourself, but it comes down to dumb luck and persistence. The last two boss fights show this well, but they are some of the most broken encounters in the past decade. The patience of a saint is needed to progress, since the constant stream of cheap game overs is as disheartening as it is frustrating. But no patience is needed for the platforming, which requires no skill at all. These sections are glorified quicktime events that don't require much timing. Getting through them barely asks the player to be conscious, since I got through most of them by randomly mashing the jump and grapple buttons. A brain isn't required, which is a godsend when compared to the rest of the game. A brain also wasn't required when writing the story, which has less depth than a Bazooka Joke comic and is just about as refreshing as the gum it wraps around. The admittedly cool intro cinematic shows Yaiba getting sliced in half by Ryu of Ninja Gaiden and thus sends Yaiba out for revenge. It doesn't do anything interesting with its premise, but what is more offensive is the abysmal writing. Yaiba tries and tries so hard to be funny, but it all comes off as forced, half-witted dialogue from a 6th grader's notebook. Humor usually stems from referencing something, but it lacks any nuance or gravity that humor should have. There's a part in the game where it rains underwear and a truck flies between a huge fake lady's legs. See, there's no joke here. You're just supposed to be in stitches because underwear is apparently just funny on its own. Of course, that doesn't even count the casual sexism to Monday, Yaiba's overly busty radio operative, the cringe-worthy eye-rolling one-liners, and the odd rapey joke at the end. Everything and everyone in this game is just about as off-putting as possible. This extends to the visuals too, which are a garbled mess. Cell shading always looks inherently good, but Yaiba marks itself as the first horrendous looking game with a cell shaded art style. Environments and enemies bleed together through their vomit colored color palette, which means it's a confusing wash of ugly reds, yellows, greens, and browns. It's visually repulsive on every level and in every level, and that's not even counting the game's less than stable frame rate, herky-jerky animation, and visual glitches. Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z is a terrible pile of trash with no redeeming factors. The story will repel you, the gameplay will aggravate you, and the visuals will only disgust you. The only purpose it served was showing that it was indeed possible to throw together a bigger catastrophe than Ninja Gaiden 3. In that regard, it succeeded. Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z gets a 1 out of 10. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.